Hello, I'm doing a movie review, and the movie I want to review is The Babadook. Now, The Babadook is an Australian horror film which came out in 2014. Now, I don't know if this got a mainstream release over in Australia, but here in the States, it only got a limited release, but I was fortunate enough to be able to see this movie in a theater. This movie was playing at a movie theater not too far from where I live, so me and my friend got to see this movie in a movie theater when it came out. Now, The Babadook isn't just one of my favorite horror films to come out in the last 5 years, but this was also my favorite film of 2014. Now, on the surface, The Babadook is a story about a mother and her son being terrorized by some kind of supernatural creature, but it's actually so much deeper than that. Really, it's a story about a woman trying to deal with the loss of her husband and also trying to take care of her son, who has a lot of deep psychological issues, and you realize that this woman also has a lot of psychological and emotional problems as well. And it's also very much a story about grief and about loss, and, really it's so much more than just a horror film. It's also very much a drama film as well. Now, the plot of The Babadook is it's about this woman named Amelia who, a few years before the events of this movie, when she was pregnant with her son, her husband was driving her to the hospital and there was a car accident and her husband got killed. So now it's years later, her son Samuel is now 6 years old, going on 7, and he has a lot of behavioral problems and a lot of, emotional and psychological problems, and you realize that taking care of this kid is really taking its toll on Amelia, and you realize that this kid is having problems in school, and he's even having problems with his cousin, and who is the daughter of Amelia's sister, and you realize that this is causing Amelia to have, problems with her relationship with her sister, so you realize that it is taking a big toll on her, and you also realize that she hasn't truly gotten over the death of her husband yet. So, one night Samuel finds this book on his bookshelf titled Mr. Babadook and asks Amelia to read it to him, and the book appears to be some kind of children's pop-up book, but it has a lot of really disturbing images in it of a little boy being terrorized by a monster, and this starts to really disturb Samuel, and Samuel starts claiming that he sees the Babadook, and at first Amelia thinks this is just part of his imagination, but he starts to really become convinced that he sees the Babadook, and this starts to really scare her because she starts to think that maybe Samuel might be schizophrenic or something, but then she starts to see the Babadook as well, and basically throughout the movie the line between reality and fantasy just starts to blur, and you're not sure how much of this is supernatural and how much of it is in Amelia's mind, and it's such a creepy and unsettling film. In the movie, you never really find out what the Babadook actually is. You don't know if it's a demon or some kind of a ghost, or if it's a manifestation of Amelia's own inner turmoils. Now, The Babadook, in my opinion, is such an amazing movie. I absolutely loved this movie, and it really is so much more than just a horror film. Now, as a horror film, it is very effective because, as I said before, this movie is creepy and unsettling as hell, and throughout the whole movie, there's just this sense of dread throughout the whole film, but besides being a horror film, it's it's also very much a drama film as well, and it's also very much a study on loss and grief and depression. I also feel like this movie painted a pretty realistic portrait of what it's like for a parent to take care of a child with behavioral problems, and this movie actually kind of struck a chord with me on a personal level because I actually used to have behavioral problems when I was a little kid, so I kinda got what Samuel was going through when he was having a lot of his, like, fits in the movie. Obviously, I don't think I was that bad when I was a little kid, like, I wasn't seeing monsters or anything, but I did have a lot of problems when I was a little kid, so I got what Samuel was going through, but I also got what Amelia was going through as well, having to take care of this kid. And the movie did a really good job at making you feel both sympathy for Samuel, but also kind of hating him as well for all the stuff that he puts his mother through. So, yeah, I highly recommend The Babadook. It is an excellent film. Not just a great horror film, but also a great drama film as well as a really good psychological thriller. Now, this film is directed by Jennifer Kent, and this is her first feature-length movie. However, she did do a short film entitled Monster a few years ago, and this movie is actually based on that short film. Now, this movie is incredibly well made and incredibly well acted. Like, Essie Davis, who played Amelia in this movie, frankly, she should have gotten an Oscar for this role. Like, she really, really was good in this movie. She was extremely believable in her role as Amelia in this movie, and at the very least, I think she should have gotten an Oscar nomination for this movie, and I think it's a sin that she didn't. And the kid who played Samuel in this movie, he was also really good as well. Like, yes, he was annoying, but that's because the character was supposed to be annoying. Because really, what kid isn't annoying, especially a kid with behavioral problems? I felt like the character of Samuel was very realistic. Really, if I were to have a complaint about this movie, it's really only in one scene. In one scene in this movie, there's a shot of CGI, which does look really, really bad, but luckily it's only in one scene, and where it lacks in areas like CGI, it still makes up for in acting and story. But yeah, that's my review on The Babadook. It's a film I highly recommend, and bye.